morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to Thomas Jefferson High School 2.0. As you can see behind us, we have an amazing new building. At this time, we would like to begin the rededication ceremony of our War Memorial. And at this time, it is my pleasure to introduce the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Michael Anthony.
We're here today not to only celebrate and honor our veterans, but we also thought it was a very fitting time to rededicate our War Memorial. When we moved from the old high school to this new building, we thought it was fitting to not only have a new War Memorial, but have one that represents those that have given everything for our freedom and everything we have in life. It was strategically placed at the entrance of the new Thomas Jefferson High School, so that every day, every student that walks in this building is reminded of those TJHS graduates that have given their lives for our freedom. And hopefully, our hope is that every kid sees that and remembers what was given up for what they have today. Thank you.
So I tried to find the official rededication ceremony. I was unsuccessful, but I did come up with this. So if you could all just please respond. I'm just going to read. You don't have to. Let us remember those who have died for their country in war and peace, those whom we knew and those whose memories we treasure, and all who lived and died in the service of their country and mankind. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to unveil our new War Memorial, Thomas Jefferson High School 2.0. At this time, I would like to read the names of all individuals who were graduates of this school who did lose their life in service for their country. In chronological order: Robert Guy Brown, Charles Thompson Lee, Thomas Burkhart, James Dewar, Frederick P. Gillen, Thomas V. Hass, Robert Doring, David C. Brueggemann, Richard A. Morrow, Stephen W. Friend. And at this time, I would just like to read this poem. Fallen warriors gone too soon, the best, the brave, bold and bright, like a comet thrust from the skies on a late summertime night. Men who've taken up the cause, giving no less than their all. 10 brilliant, eager minds for whom we silently pause. In behalf of the motherland, they've paid the ultimate price. We acknowledge now their families in memories of their sacrifice. And of their story, time will tell, for they shall be remembered well. At this time, it is my pleasure to also introduce senior Emily Alcorn, where she will pay tribute to these fallen soldiers. This time you are free, if you'd like to take a picture. We will move our program inside, but take as time that you need. Obviously, if you're a member of the families that are here, thank you very much for coming. When you you're ready, like I said, we can go back in. We will go to theater. I've reserved 3 rows, like in that second tier, hopefully. There's enough room for all of us. This time, if you could all please stand as we bring in the presentation of colors, led by Senior Jared Vigorski, followed by the national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. You may be seated. On behalf of Thomas Jefferson High School, West Jefferson Hills School District, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome the class of 2020-2021 to join us this morning, as well as our veterans and other invited dignitaries. Thank you for accepting our invitation. We hopefully you will enjoy this morning's program. At this time, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Mrs. Louise Biddle for our invocation.
Heavenly Father, we thank you with grateful hearts for the many blessings that surround us each day. We thank you for this opportunity to gather together to honor our veterans, past and present. May we always be mindful they exemplify true patriotism with their courage, perseverance, dedication, sacrifices, and love for their country. Heavenly Father, embrace them with your compassion, wisdom, and everlasting love. God bless our veterans, and God bless our USA.
At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Senior Class President, Mrs. Kate Biddle, on why we celebrate Veterans Day.
Good morning. As he said, my name is Kate Biddle and I'm the Senior Class President. As we all know, we are here today to honor and celebrate our veterans for their service in protecting this country and fighting for our freedoms. However, many of us do not know the history behind this national holiday. Veterans Day originated as Armistice Day on November 11, 1919, for the anniversary of the end of World War I. They called this day Armistice Day to commemorate the agreement made between Germany and the Allied nations known as the Treaty of Versailles. Eventually, Congress passed a resolution for Armistice Day to become a national holiday in 1926. And later on in 1954, President Dwight D. Eisenhower changed the name of the holiday to Veterans Day. I am so honored to have been granted this opportunity to speak in front of my peers, teachers, and most importantly, the brave men and women who fought for this country to stay free and protected. The selfless act of committing yourself to serve does not go unrecognized. I, representing TJHS, thank all of you for your bravery, dedication, and service to our country. Thank you, and God bless America.
time, it is my pleasure to introduce not only a former Thomas Jefferson High School student, but a member of our community who I feel exemplifies what service means. He bridges the past to the present with the future of all of us, or all of you who may serve or have served. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Major Mike Thatcher.
Good morning, TJ, and happy Veterans Day. I want to thank everybody in the leadership of the district, especially Mr. Murphy, for putting this ceremony together and the dedication for the memorial outside in front of this building. If you haven't seen it yet, please take time when you're walking by to take a look. It's beautiful and it hits close to home. One of the names on there, the parents, his parents were both TJ teachers. My dad was actually in the class when the Marines came to knock on the door and tell him their son had been killed. And the last name on there is from Iraq, so not very long ago. It was one of my brother's best friends. But today, it's really my pleasure to introduce two of my personal heroes. They're going to share some of their wisdom with each one of you. So the first gentleman that's going to speak is Mr. Stephen Trisson. And Steve grew up in Fayette County and attended California University, Pennsylvania. He got a teaching degree there. But he joined the Army after graduating from college. He was an infantryman, and he was actually assigned to the Old Guard. With anybody who's been down to Arlington National Cemetery or the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, those are the soldiers that guard and do the ceremonies down there. During his time there, he did more than 1,300 military funerals for veterans to be interned in Arlington, and was actually a pallbearer for President Reagan when he passed in 2004. When he left active duty after completing schools like Airborne and Ranger School, and both of these gentlemen up here today are Rangers. I'll tell you this, to you guys that are athletes and think you had it tough, talk to these two gentlemen about what they had to go through. It's a little bit more challenging. He served in the Army National Guard as a squad leader. He deployed to Iraq in 2009 and did 350 combat patrols where he was responsible for 10 young Americans. And following his time in Iraq, he's been a police officer since 2007, including the city, Collier Township, and most recently in Scott Township. But probably the thing I'd say he's most proud of is his family. His wife, Kristen, is here, who's also a Pleasant Hills police officer, and they live in this district and are raising two good sons. And if you pulled off his suit today, he's probably got a Captain America shirt underneath there, and Bald Eagle probably lives in his backyard. So ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Stephen Trisson.
A little bit of exaggeration there. First off, good morning to all of you. Before I begin, I'd like to start by thanking the Honorable Mike Thatcher for having me here today to speak. I would also like to thank the superintendents, principals, teachers, the staff, and finally you, the students at Thomas Jefferson High School, for allowing all of us to be here today. Today is the day when Americans are supposed to thank veterans for their service to this nation. While myself and all the other veterans here appreciate that thanks and gratitude, I can tell you that none of us joined the military for that. If you talk to any veteran and ask them why they joined, you're sure to hear any one of a number of reasons. Some did it for the college money. Some did it for their love of country. Some did it because they had no other options or opportunity. Some did it as a way to escape poverty or simply as a job. And one of the funnier reasons I think that I've actually heard, and I have heard this more than once, is it comes down to they had one of two choices. It was either the military or jail. And I guess the military was a better option. Nonetheless, talk to any veteran and you're likely to hear any one of a number of reasons. For me, it came down to two things. I felt an obligation to a country that had provided me with so much and so many opportunities in a way of life that I cherished. The second reason was one that you also hear from quite a few people. I simply was looking for a challenge. For as long as I can remember, I wanted to serve my country. My father was a paratrooper in the 101st Airborne Division, and after hearing his stories as a small child, I decided I also wanted to jump out of airplanes. I also was looking for the challenge that becoming an Army Ranger would undoubtedly provide. Regardless of what made any one of us choose to enter the armed forces, We all serve with one common goal: to protect this great nation from all of its enemies and maintain the freedom and way of life we all know and love so much. Whether a veteran served during a time of war or a time of peace, our nation's military gets its strength from the individual soldier, sailor, marine, airmen and women, Coast Guardsmen. It is the strength of our military that acts as a deterrent to our enemies during times of peace, and it is that same strength that allows us to defeat our enemies in a time of war. When I initially was asked by Judge Thatcher to speak at this event, I asked him, specifically what he wanted me to address you, the students of Thomas Jefferson High School, about. He basically said it was pretty simple. He said, talk to them about being great Americans. Over the last few weeks, I've spent a lot of time thinking about that, what it means to me to be a great American, and what I'm about to say is basically what I came up with during that time. One of the 7 Army values is the concept of selfless service. Simply stated, it is the idea of putting the welfare of the nation before your own personal welfare. Nation first, plain and simple. In the Army, it is a value to be lived each and every day. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that the only way to be a good American is to join the military and put the welfare of the nation before your own. What I am saying is the selfless service part is something that can be achieved without ever having to put a uniform on. Selfless service is to periodically put the needs of others before your own. To me, selfless service also means that you live your life the right way and set the example for others to follow. It could be mowing the lawn or shoveling the driveway for an elderly neighbor. It could be standing up for the kid you see being bullied by other students. It could be taking the time to volunteer at your church or the local soup kitchen. It could even be something as simple as holding the door open for a person who's walking into the mall behind you. It means that you represent your family, community, and your school in a positive manner. Every time you step onto the field, court, or mat, whether you win or lose. It means setting the example for a younger sibling by respecting and listening to your parents and elders. And yes, it means to love and respect one another. Whether you realize it or not, you all have already been serving your country by being the good human beings you all are, and this is what makes America great. And on a side note, I know this weekend the TJ High School football team is going to be great when they beat the snot out of Bell Vernon, right? You see, selfless service is a value each and every American possesses and lives every day. It is something that is instilled in us by our parents, grandparents, teachers, and all the other positive influences in our lives. It is one of the many qualities that makes every American what they are, exceptional. And just as our military derives its strength from its individual members, it is you and your selfless service to be the best individuals you can be that make this country what it is today. As I said earlier, you don't need to join the armed forces to serve your nation. America needs great principals, teachers, scientists, engineers, judges, first responders, utility workers, janitors, baristas, and auto mechanics, just to name a few. We as a nation need great mothers and fathers, great sons and daughters, and great aunts and uncles. The biggest thank you that you can give to any veteran is to take full advantage of the freedom and opportunity that has been provided to you and to reach your full potential as an individual. That is selfless service. So no matter what it is you find yourself doing now, or whatever role you find yourself in, whether it is today or 30 years from now, reach your full potential and be the best, because it is you as an individual that America relies on for her greatness. God bless America. God bless our veterans. God bless you all. Thank you.
much, Steve, for those awesome comments. Our next speaker is Pat Donahue. And Pat started his military career in the woods behind Deer Park where he grew up, where we used to play together. And it turns out it worked out pretty well for him. Pat and I graduated together in 2002 from TJ, so he has walked in your shoes. And I can tell you what, when we go back to our 20-year reunion, everybody's going to remember that Pat was as friendly as he was popular, and was never one of those guys who was caught up in any kind of high school drama, and that's what's going to be remembered about you. After high school, Pat attended the University of Pittsburgh and earned multiple postgraduate degrees, and following achieving that, he joined the Army. And again, he was an infantryman. He went to Ranger School. He went to Airborne School. He went to Reconnaissance Leaders Course, all very challenging schools, and deployed to the Kunar province in Afghanistan, where he executed combat operations against the Taliban for a year over there. When he returned back to the States, he came back to Pittsburgh and became a recruiter, where he encouraged young men and women to join the military. In 2018, he left active duty, but today he's still working in service. His family owns a company called Comfort Keepers that provides in-home care to the elderly, and I guarantee a lot of families from you guys here in this community have received the benefits of what their family does. So it's an honor to call you a friend and member of this community. Ladies and gentlemen, Pat Donahue.
We have Veterans Day. Just kidding. I'm honored and humbled to be here. Last time I was on the stage with Judge Thatcher, it was in 2002. We were both seniors, and we were both members of National Honor Society, and we had to hand out awards to the seniors as they came up and won their senior awards. And I remember looking around being like, I'm the dumbest person on this stage. Some things never change. So this morning I was thanked several times for my service, and I appreciate the gratitude. But the real heroes in this room are the educators. Without them, none of us would be up here. I mean, nothing would be possible. So even if you don't like them, take advantage of them. It's to your own benefit. And so yeah, thank you for what you do. All right, so I want to talk to you a little bit about, Justice, I'm really short. Okay, I want to talk to you for a couple minutes about teamwork. This isn't academia or anything, it's just based on my experience in the Army. From day one of basic training, as these gentlemen will tell you, your individual identity is stripped away, right? It's not to brainwash you or to belittle you or anything like that, but it's to enable you to see yourself as a member of a unit, something that will eventually develop cohesiveness and accomplish a common goal, right? So there's a couple things that make a successful team. And you find this out in basic training. One is being able to overcome obstacles and adversity together. The second thing is using the strengths that come from each person instead of their weaknesses, as opposed to the weaknesses, and using all of that to overcome the obstacle and achieve objectives. And as you do that, you build cohesiveness, and you're better able to overcome harder obstacles. So I want to tell you a little story just about when I was in the Army, the last team I led as a recon team leader. It was me, it was my best friend, still to this day, Sergeant Singh. He was from India, but if you ask him, he'd say he'd be from New Jersey. I don't know where he was born. He had dual citizenship. He recently had to give up his Indian citizenship for a top secret security clearance. But so me, Singh from India, Vladimir Poka from Chicago, but was born in the Ukraine when it was still under the Soviet Union. Rodrigo Jimenez, he was from someplace in California, I don't remember. Eric Louis from Ohio, a couple other guys. But the one I want to focus on is Carlos Martinez. He was a private, right? And Martinez was one of the worst garrison soldiers in the world, right? His uniform was always messed up. He was smoking cigarettes and flicking it on the lawn. He'd have his hand in his pockets talking to like a senior, we we call them NCOs, it's a non-commissioned officer. It's a big no-no. And every time Martinez got in trouble, I got in trouble because I was in charge of Martinez. And yeah, it sucked. But, needless to say, I kind of lost trust in this guy. But when we would go out to the field and do like training exercises, Martinez was on point. Like his rucksack would be packed perfectly, his weapon would be clean. He was good like with a map and a compass and can get to like wherever in a fast amount of time. He was just like, he knew all of his battle drills. He was awesome. But I was not giving him, when we would go out to the field, I was still treating him like this screwed up little private. So he wasn't able to thrive in that environment. And then as a result, our team wasn't able to thrive. Eventually, as we were like out in the field more and more, I was like, all right, this guy's good, and I'd give him more experience, and he'd be the point guy, and he'd get us to the objective, and like our sergeant major would be like, hey, your team's awesome. I'm like, yeah, it's because of Martinez. In hindsight, there was, the team was diverse, right? Martinez was 19, I was 29. Martinez was immature, I was a little more mature than him, relatively speaking. But I was focusing on Martinez's weakness. And that blinded me to his strengths. Eventually, obviously, we overcame that, and we were a better team as a result of that. But the reason I'm telling you about that is the Army's kind of like a microcosm for America. You have people of all different ages, all different genders, all different political viewpoints, races, whatever. It doesn't really matter. We're all Americans. And if you focus on what you perceive to be somebody's weakness, that's going to be all you see, and you're going to completely ignore their strengths. So the world, America, it doesn't look like Thomas Jefferson High School. And that's cool, you know, don't worry about it. But when you go out there, you need to be able to work with people that are different from you. And when you're doing it, make sure you look at their strength.
Good morning. You heard the veterans give you some very good information to help you as you move through your lives. But the main reason we're here is for the veterans and how they do keep us safe. They talk about teamwork. They talk about you finding your niche in society to give back. Some of those people you know made the ultimate sacrifice. They gave their lives. These men are still giving back. They're still serving. But partnerships are very important. I'm here today to represent the West Jefferson Hills Chamber of Commerce. We are the business leaders in the three communities of West Elizabeth, Jefferson Hills, and Pleasant Hills. Talking about giving back, I look at the board on that group. They don't get paid. They put in endless hours. Maybe some of us on that board could never be soldiers like the people we're honoring today. But each of you should find your niche of where you can give back, whatever small way it may be. As the one veteran noted, maybe it's shoveling somebody's sidewalk. Maybe it's serving this great United States of America. Today, because we are a business association, we always present an award to a business in the community that has enriched and made our community better. We are sitting in an ultra-nice facility. So this year's award goes to Thomas Jefferson High School for making our community much better and giving you all an opportunity to enjoy it. So Mr. Murphy, here's the award for West Jefferson.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Maculin. On behalf of the school, we will accept this and ultimately display it in a very prominent location. Veterans Day is definitely a day to celebrate all those who have served. But as we did a little bit earlier this morning, we still want to remember those that went to Thomas Jefferson High School in the past. To do that this morning, I've asked Taylor Gata, a senior, to just review our 10 fallen Thomas Jefferson High School graduates.
I am Taylor Gata. From the comfort of home and the freedom that we're used to, it's often difficult to fathom the bravery, endurance, and sacrifice of service. Nonetheless, as Americans, we cannot allow ourselves to grow numb to the gravity of liberty. With our daily actions, we must recognize our blessings and honor the selfless and courageous heroes who gave themselves so that we might live and live freely. With unabating gratitude, I present a tribute to the Thomas Jefferson High School students who gave all. Robert Guy Brown, Thomas Jefferson class of 1965. He served in the United States Marine Corps as Lance Corporal in the Vietnam Theater. He was killed in action on March 21st, 1966. Charles Thomas Lee. He graduated as a Thomas Jefferson class of 1964. He served in the United States Marine Corps as a corporal. He served in the Vietnam Theater and was killed in action on March 6, 1968. Thomas Burkhart. He graduated class of 1964 and served in the United States Marine Corps as Lance Corporal. He served in the Vietnam Theater and was killed in action on May 27, 1967. James Stewart. He graduated class of 1968 and served in the United States Army as a private first class. He was killed in the Vietnam Theater on May 10, 1969. Frederick P. Gillen, Thomas Jefferson class of 1967. He served in the United States Army as a specialist grade E4. He was killed in Vietnam on August 12, 1969. Thomas B. Haas. He graduated in 1968, serving in the United States Marine Corps as Lance Corporal. He served in the Vietnam Theater and was killed in action December 24, 1969. Robert Doran, Thomas Jefferson class of 1966. He served in the United States Army as sergeant and was killed in the Vietnam Theater on May 1, 1970. David C. Brugman, Thomas Jefferson class of 1964. He served in the United States Marine Corps as first lieutenant in the Vietnam Theater and was killed in action April 1, 1972. Richard A. Morrow, Thomas Jefferson class of 1981. He served in the United States Marine Corps as Lance Corporal. He was killed in action in Beirut, Lebanon on October 23, 1983. And Stephen W. Freeland, class of 2003. He served in the United States Marine Corps as a private first class. He served in the Iraq operation of Iraqi freedom and was killed in action May 23, 2006. We thank these men and all those in service for their selflessness and valor. With humility, love, and gratitude, may we never forget the cost of freedom. As John F. Kennedy put it, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. Thank you.
That was a beautiful song. Sometime in the early 90s, teachers at Thomas Jefferson High School did put together a war memorial to honor those 10 individuals that you just saw. We're fortunate this morning to have at least one of those individuals here, but I'd like to honor both for that tribute that has taken place for almost 30 years. First one is Mr. Mike Kopinski. I don't know if Mr. Kopinski's here, but I'd like to give him a nice round of applause. And Mr. Charles Blakewell, who I do know is here this morning, so I'd like to give him Also, in order to try to pull together the history of these 10 individuals, there was a gentleman, Mr. Joe Hill, who did some research and he put some things out there on Facebook. So I don't know if Mr. Hill is here. We did invite him, but I'd really like to give him some praise for his diligent work and to honor all 10 of those individuals. So Mr. Hill, let's give him. As is a tradition at our Veterans Day celebration, we would like to play the Armed Forces Medley. And when you, members of the service, when your song is played, we would like you to stand and be ready. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Jim Mirabella, the Thomas Jefferson High School Band. Recognize those veterans. Thanks.
Thank you.
kind of hard to top that. So in closing, just a few thank yous. A lot went into making today a special day for our veterans. I'd first like to thank Mrs. Lucci and the Thomas Jefferson High School choirs for their outstanding performance. I'd like to thank Mr. Bettler and Mr. Geiger for their expertise in making us able to live stream this for our community. I would like to thank Mrs. Breisinger for her help in doing research with me to honor our 10 TJ graduates. I'd like to thank Mr. Jim Mirabella and the Thomas Jefferson Band for their fantastic work this morning. And last but not least, I would like to thank all of our veterans, and I'd ask them to please stand for a well-deserved round of applause. Thank you all so much for your service and for all that you've done for these young people and for our country. At this time, that concludes our program. I would like to invite all veterans, first responders, and invited guests back to the LGI room for some coffee and some light refreshments. And the rest of you will get you back to class. Thank you all so much.